Great. Well, hello and welcome to another episode of the Reiki Lifestyle Podcast. We're really excited for our guests here today, Caren Trimby and Rose O'Connor. Just want to give a wave and say hi.
Hi. Hi, everybody.
And of course, I'm also here with Colleen. It's all right. She waved for those of you that are listening.
I'm muted. Hello.
And, just a few quick announcements before we get into it. Let's see. We will be having an Animal Reiki class coming up at the end of January, ACRT Animal Reiki 1 and 2, and Animal Reiki Master. And then Colleen will be having Holy Fire Reiki 1 and 2, Holy Fire Reiki Master, and Karuna Reiki Master, Holy Fire Karuna Reiki Master in February. I think when this is released, that next step will have already happened, but just in case not, our monthly online courses, Next Step Reiki and Explore the 12 Heavens, are also on our website. So you can find more information about all of that. And then, of course, more information about us and our classes and all of that at reikilifestyle.com. All right. So our guests today, as I said, are Rose O'Connor. So Rose is a Holy Fire Reiki Master teacher and author who specializes in teaching Animal Reiki with horses. She, I can just say two, yay. She also offers Reflexology and Moon Na. Did I pronounce that correctly, Rose?
Mana, yes.
Mana, okay. Celtic Women's Circles. Her goal is to continually find ways to share the joys of Reiki and greater self-awareness with others. So her website, and we'll repeat this again too, is reikiislove.com, Rose at reikiislove.com, and then her Facebook is at Reiki is Love. And they are both in Pennsylvania. So Caren is a Holy Fire Reiki Master teacher, Animal Reiki practitioner, and founder of Reiki Wings, a Reiki forward wellness community located in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania. Caren's mission is to help individuals rediscover and empower their authentic selves through Reiki. And her website is reikiwings.com. And then her Facebook is at Reiki Wing. And again, they are both in Pennsylvania. All right. Well, welcome to the two of you. We are here to talk about a really great subject that I know we actually get quite a bit of questions about, are Reiki circles, how to offer them, start them, run them, all of those things. So this will be a great topic for a lot of people that, like I said, Colleen and I actually get questions about these in classes and emails about this all the time. So we're really excited to talk about this. But before we would get going, I would like to hear just a little bit about you and, your Reiki story, kind of what brought you to Reiki or just whatever you're feeling called to share. So Rose, why don't we start with you and then we'll go to Caren.
Sure. And just to let the listeners know, Robin, that my website is Reiki is Love, but it's one I. So I took so it's REIKISLOVE.
Great, thank you.
People have fun with that because sometimes when I give that name, on the phone or something like that, there's like Reiki's Love, right? So it could be any connotation that you want on there. But
and we'll put that in the descriptions of YouTube for anybody who's listening. We'll put it in the show notes and the description. So just so that they can find that easily. So, but thank you for clarifying. That's very helpful.
Sure. So my journey, how did I find Reiki? Well, I had been through quite a time of things and was in need of some healing myself at a point in my life when I was in my late 40s. And I came back to live in Pennsylvania. And I went to massage therapy school, and I met my best friend there. Her name is Mary Kay, not the cosmetics, and she and I really paired up. And I still can remember so clearly one night we were there and I was standing at the end of one massage table and she was next to me. And I had my hands on that person's head. And she looked over at me and she whispered, she said, "You're doing Reiki. You need to," because she was the first person to introduce me to Reiki because she had taken Reiki and I didn't know anything about it really. And so she led me to her teacher and she also paid for my first class. So yeah, so that's how I got started. And then I did all kinds of things. I did massage therapy, yoga teacher training, reflexology. And I was like, okay, now how can I do all of this at the same time? So I just put it out there. And every time I put out something about Reiki, it always worked out. So Reiki showed me very clearly, this is the path. So, so that's how I got started.
As most people can relate to. And Caren, how about you?
Well, when I was a little child, I used to pray a lot. And I always just envisioned, energy and love going along to people, just kind of like helping them, if they were sick or if somebody felt frightened or I felt frightened, I would always just kind of like envision this light around me. And I just thought that was normal. I thought that's what everybody did, as a kid. And then one day I met a Catholic nun named Sister Eileen Walsh, and she introduced me to Reiki. She told me all about Reiki. She put out like a little pendulum and like put it on her hand, and we watched it kind of like spin around. She goes, "That's the chakras. That's the energies coming out." I was like, wow, I've been doing that my whole life. I need to know more about this. So that was back probably in like, I guess maybe like the late 90s, early 2000s. And the internet wasn't really all that great back then. So there wasn't really much information that I could learn about. Maybe I could go to the bookstore and maybe buy a book about it or something, but the information was kind of limited. So I just, learned just very little about it. But then I found out that my neighbor down the street was a Reiki practitioner. I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. So fortunately for me at this time, I was going through some tough times in my life. My marriage was falling apart. My kids were struggling a little bit. So life was really difficult for me at that time. So I started seeing my neighbor, and by receiving Reiki with her, it kind of helped me keep my head above water. It helped me stay sane during a really, really rough time. And then fortunately, I ended up getting divorced. But after my divorce, I said to myself, I need to learn this because I need this in my life. So I took my first Reiki class, and here I am now. I just fell in love with it. So that's how I came to Reiki.
Awesome. Well, then how did the two of you meet? So that's the next question.
Well, you can start that story.
So I was invited to a gathering at my Reiki teacher's house, Susanna. I was invited to, I'm not sure if it was a Reiki circle, maybe. I'm not really 100% sure. I can't remember. But I remember Susanna was telling me about her friend Rose, who teaches Animal Reiki. And I was like, oh, I have to meet this Rose. So Rose was at this gathering, and I kind of saw her across the room, and I was like, okay, I need to meet her. And I just walked over to her, and we just started talking, and the rest is history. We were trying to kind of remember the history of our kind of relationship, but honestly, I just remember it starting over a table of tea and us just talking.
And Susanna Spanton is Caren's teacher, and as you know Susanna. And Susanna really championed my first Animal Reiki class because she promoted it. She said, I'm not going to teach this, and I think you're going to do a great job. And so Caren came, and Susanna took the class, and it was a great class.
Yeah, it was
a great class. So that just kind of furthered our bond doing that class together. Yep.
And how long ago was that? So how long have you all known each other?
Not that long ago, right? Was it last year?
Probably about a year ago.
Yeah.
Sometime last year.
That's amazing. And so that was still kind of in the middle of everything going on in the world. So not that we're that far out of it at this point.
Right.
Yeah. So just having that community.
Yeah, and it was nice because we still had it in person, and
Yeah.
and beings that it was, I teach at a beautiful farm. Oh my gosh, it took me so long. Well, it didn't take me long, but Reiki made me be patient to find a spot to do it. And it's a beautiful 100-acre horse farm in Honeybrook, which is Amish country. So, and there's hardly any traffic on the road. The horse farm is on both sides of the road. And every once in a while, you'll hear the clip clops of the Amish buggy going down the road. And the horses are amazing. They're just so well cared for. And they have a beautiful yoga barn that they fixed up. And in the yoga barn, it's the top floor of a barn. So it would have been where you stack the hay, right? And so it has a big sliding door that you can open in the nice weather. And if there's a horse in the pasture, they can literally walk up to the door where you're all gathered around and kind of, poke their heads in and see what's going on. So, and then of course we work outside too, but yeah, I feel really blessed to have found that spot for teaching.
Yeah, I'd say so. That sounds amazing. Colleen and I are horse people, so we were like,
I know.
Please.
So do you guys teach that together? You teach Animal Reiki together?
I don't teach. I'm level 2.
Okay.
Not yet.
No.
Haven't roped her into that quite yet.
I'm surrounded by animals at home, so I'm always
Right. I know exactly what you mean. For years, I've because I have animals, I always have shared Animal Reiki with the animals. But that's, for me, it was different than being professional, where we are now. So go ahead and share with us a little bit more about your Animal Reiki on the farm, Rose, because I think there would be people that would travel there for that.
Okay. As you may know, I'm not sure if you know, but I'm sure the listeners will not know. My first lifetime, as I say, was spent with horses, and my first husband had a horse business, and that's how I got into horses. And so we ran the whole gamut of the horses. And then when he and I split up, I kind of split from horses at the same time. And so the Animal Reiki and doing it with the horses is so dear to my heart, because it's kind of a happy reunion of that for me. And because I bring that knowledge, as you know, when you bring that knowledge of the horses to people, I think it adds an extra element, because it's just like you've spoken to us about in the training, that you need to know the breed of animal or the type of animal that you're working with, whether it's in a session or in a class. And because they're just like second nature to me, I feel like I can help people to see the signs and what I call the Reiki registers and how they're reacting, and help them to understand. But gosh, I am so grateful for this Animal Reiki. It's, as we've spoken about, Colleen, I've done a lot of training with Animal Reiki with different teachers, and it's all been really fantastic. But this energy is just phenomenal. And it's really personally has brought me to a place of being able to communicate with them in a way that I never could before. And also, gosh, there's just so much to it. I could go on for 2 hours about Animal Reiki, so I don't want to take too long, but just the peace and the embodiment of that energy. And I think for me, I didn't really, I was thinking about it this morning, because when we received Holy Fire 3 and we learned about the unification, and I was realizing this morning that even though I learned it and I did the upgrade and I listened, to you talk about it and I taught it, I don't think I really felt that unification until I did the Animal Reiki Master class. And I think that was the moment when I really fully came into my human body and was able to connect the divine with the human. And so it's been a really significant journey for me, and I love teaching it so much.
How often do you teach those classes? Just so if there's anybody that's listening that would want to.
Sure, yeah. I have one scheduled. I have an online class scheduled for February. And then I have 2 more classes, one in June and one in September. And so I think I might, for this year, I might make all of them the 1 and 2. And then I haven't scheduled the master quite yet because it's still kind of this style of Animal Reiki is still kind of new in this area. So I would like to get more exposure and get more people involved in it, getting those first couple of levels. And I did teach a master class in September, and it was really wonderful. But I want to cultivate some more students for that next master class. At the farm, you kind of have to do it in the nice weather.
Right.
Because
that's true.
It's not fun if you're going out there and shivering, it's pretty cold out there in the wintertime.
So you do the in-person classes then in the summer and the fall? Okay.
Yeah.
And that's in Pennsylvania. I'm only asking because I know there are people who will hear it and think, oh, I want to do that.
Yeah. Yes, it's really, it's an amazing spot. And there's also a farmhouse there on the property that, used to the great grandfather who was Amish lived in the farmhouse, and they just renovated it and turned it into an Airbnb. So there's the availability of people actually staying on the farm there for the weekend if they want. And it's so peaceful and so beautiful there. It's idyllic. It really is. When the weather's nice, we have our experiences outside under a big tree, and the horses are all around and they kind of come up. And, the one time we were doing an experience and the one horse came up and just kept snorting and blowing and snorting and blowing. And, it was hard not to start giggling, right? Because they're just in on the action, as you know. So it's really, really a great experience.
Oh, I love that. And so they can find out more about that on your website, Reiki's Love.
Yes, and they're, okay. Feel free to call or email me or with any questions at any time.
Okay, great. And that, just to clarify, when she talks about this Animal Reiki, this is the ICRT Animal Reiki 1 and 2 and ICRT Animal Reiki Master. So
correct. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Like I say, once you talked about the farm where it is, I was like, oh, people will want to know about that. And so we can help them not have to track you down for it.
That would be great. I would love that. Thank you.
Can I share a little bit about my experience with Animal Reiki? This summer, the beginning of the summer, I decided that I wanted to plant a native pollinator garden. So I did all the research about, the native plants and the area and all the native pollinators. And I call it my Tree of Life garden. And I just used the Animal Reiki in there and, the Holy Fire Reiki as well. And it was the most beautiful experience I ever had. I had monarch butterfly caterpillars in there, bees galore. It was a magical experience. And, by inviting that, that energy from the divine animal kingdom into that garden was just so beautiful.
Oh, we could do a whole topic on that.
Yeah.
Because we're like, wait, talk a little bit more about that. So what are you actually calling it and how did you research it?
So my garden, I just call it, my little Tree of Life garden. And because I live in Pennsylvania and then a certain area in Pennsylvania, there's native plants and pollinators that, come to Pennsylvania. So I just made sure that everything that I was planning in there was, native to the area to support the natural habitat and wildlife in the area. So, yeah.
Oh, I love that. And so then you Googled that, like pollinator gardens in my area, or pollinator plants in my area?
I think a lot, like I know Penn State has information online for that. Obviously Penn State was because we're in Pennsylvania, so I'm sure every state university has something, the information that you need for your local area. But and also social media really helps. There's so many Facebook groups out there for, local pollinator groups that are so helpful. So, if people are interested in that, they just, find your local area, your state, your town, your city, even your little borough. We have a Phoenixville pollinator group that I'm part of, and everybody's really supportive and knowledgeable. To just help everybody, support everybody. So social media is really good for that.
That's so good to hear, because I wouldn't have known that name. And I know others that are listening are probably thinking, well, yeah, I've heard that before. But for me, it's actually kind of a new, the whole idea of a pollinator garden. I know pollinator plants and things like that, but and then to combine Reiki with it.
It was magical and amazing. I mean, it was just amazing to be in there with all the little critters and bees flying around. It was really great.
Isn't it great? It's just so great, the connection to the earth. A lot of the emphasis we talked about with the horses, but I just love the aspect of connecting with the spirit of the earth. I almost want to call it Animal Earth Reiki, because
it really
I think there's such an emphasis on that. I even, for this masterclass in September, we're very fortunate because there's a lot of countryside around here and parks. And I took them out for one afternoon to a state park around here by a lake. And we just, we did all the techniques that have to do with connecting to earth energy. And there's so many things that we can do with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear what you mean. And in fact, I think we added or are adding in the final edits of the Animal Reiki Master Manual to really clarify that it is actually for everything, from people to the earth, to nature, to the cities. I recently did a presentation about Animal Reiki in Brazil. And in that I found photos of the cities, Sao Paulo in Brazil, and the cities in Brazil, to say it's in the cities also, and nature and the waterfalls and the mountains, and like you say, the lakes and the earth itself, and really making that really deep connection with it.
Yeah.
Well, Caren, I think that would be a great Reiki News magazine article.
Yeah, I've thought about it.
Yeah.
Just have to get my brain together to
add it to the list, right?
Yeah.
So, well, then tell us about your work with the Reiki circles.
Go first, go ahead.
So, just being out within the community, and people say, oh, what do you do? And I say, oh, I'm a Reiki practitioner. And they say, oh, I know Reiki too. And I'm like, oh, wow. So just, walking out there and meeting random people, you don't realize that there are a lot of us out there. There's so many people out there that, do practice Reiki. Just because some people might have a studio, doesn't mean that they're the only ones. So I ended up meeting just a lot of people who say, oh, I know Reiki too. And they always ask me, do you have Reiki circles at your studio? And I always wanted to have Reiki circles, but I just felt very intimidated and nervous about kind of, bringing that together. I don't really even think I was really ever at Reiki circles before, so I never really knew how to do a Reiki circle. But I knew that there were people out there that wanted Reiki circles, and I knew I wanted Reiki circles. And then one day Rose said, we should do Reiki circles. And I was like, yes, we should. Yes, let's do it. But you have to be the I guess I said, you have to be the adult in it. You have to be the one who kind of like organizes the pace of it, I guess, because I'm not really sure what to do. And she says, okay, I'll do that. So, I'm good at bringing people together, and Rose is good at kind of like the structure and the routine of it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
She has a great place in Phoenixville. Where I live, it's a little bit more rural, so it's been a little bit slower, getting the word out to the community. And although I have students and have brought them in for shares, and then of course with the what's been happening, I'm not going to use the word that's so overused, but the last couple of years, my Reiki circles have been online circles, and then small circles here at my home where I work out of. But I saw really good potential with Caren to, we just, as soon as I said it to her, it was a done deal. She was like, oh yes, let's do it. Because what I told her was that my vision has always been, well, I've always had Reiki circles. And when I lived in Colorado, it really helped a lot to bring the community of people who had taken trainings together in the same space. And it just helps with that cohesiveness, that community-minded spirit. And I told Caren, there's quite a number of people that live in what's called Chester County. Is Phoenixville Chester County? And it's quite a large county. And I said to her, it would be really neat if we could not only host circles, but we could do them in different places and get other people spiraling off to host different circles. So that's kind of part of our bigger plan, I think, with it. So yeah, so that's how we got started.
Well, can you share just some of the, as you were saying, the structure? So like how you talk about your name, Reiki Strong, and then how you have one in your home, and then if you're in the studio and the differences, and if you are taking it out into other communities to teach others how to start theirs. So can you talk about what that actually looks like and some of your structures and planning?
Well, my structure for doing Reiki circles is probably similar to what you do, Colleen, is that because I feel like, for me anyway, the importance of having a Reiki circle, besides building community, is also to give people a place to practice. But it's also, for me, important for people to have a place to practice being the channel and just getting out of the way. And when you're standing at a table with 4 other people, usually I just kind of guide people to, and it kind of happens organically, for people to just keep it very simple. We'll do, depending on, our last Reiki share was quite large, so we did 8 minutes for each person. We had 4 tables. And so I just feel like it's such a great way for people to just keep their ego and personality out of it and just be Reiki. And then you're sharing it in that space, and the space is just filling with it. And so I think it, as Reiki does, it teaches us so much. And it teaches us how powerful it is to have that many hands times squared, right? To how strong Reiki can be in that. And it brings us together in a way that, all the talking and everything else just can't do. So, and then Caren has, you can talk about, she has had a few ideas about something that we can offer, like a meditation before we start the circle. So if you want to tell them about kind of what we've been doing with that.
Sure. So a couple times what we did, we opened it up, the circle, like people joined in, we kind of gathered in the circle, maybe did like little introductions, talked about us, saying, hello, I'm Caren, I like Reiki. And then I believe we opened one with one of your animal Reiki experiences. We open the circle with an animal Reiki experience, which was a really beautiful way. It's about 25 minutes, I guess. And then after the experience, we all came back floating, happy. We kind of just grouped up together. I don't remember specifically how many groups we had, but maybe like 4 or 5 people in a group together, and just kind of rotate around sharing Reiki with each other. And then we kind of come in the end and kind of close the circle with maybe a little ceremony. And then go on our merry way or linger around and talk a little. Our last one that we had in November, we had Steve Coulter, who is a Reiki master, and he's also a Qigong instructor. He teaches Qigong at our studio on Tuesday nights. He opened up our circle with the Buddha Mudra meditations. And that was a really beautiful way to kind of open up the circle and, invite the Reiki energy in before we began sharing it with each other.
We did drumming once.
We did drumming. Yep. We pulled out our little drums and kind of did some drumming. That was really beautiful. I think it was the heartbeat of the earth. If I remember correctly. Yeah. And then our circle on Sunday, we haven't talked about what we're going to do yet. So we're not sure how we're going to open our circle this Sunday, but yeah. Keeping it fresh.
So are people in chairs or are they on tables?
Oh, good question.
Yeah. What's it look like, like physically?
So we, when we open our circles, usually we're kind of sitting on the floor. I have some Zafu pillows at the studio. We had a big circle of 20 people in a circle last month. Somebody brought a little chair, their own little like beach chair they can sit on if they want, meditation pillows. There are chairs that you could sit on. So, but I think for the most part, we're usually beginning the circles, probably sitting on the floor, laying on the floors, maybe on blankets or yoga mats, if we're doing like a meditation. And then for when we do the Reiki itself, we have tables set up. So we'll just have a bunch of different tables set up everywhere. And if we run out of tables, you could always still, a person could sit in a chair or they could lay on the floor too.
We haven't run out of tables yet.
Yeah, we have a lot of tables.
So you have the table set up, and then you said you have multiple people around the table. So like one person is the client and 3 or 4 are the practitioners?
Correct. Yep. And then somebody keeps the time. We decide on the time, and it does kind of have that organic way of people starting and finishing. And sometimes, you have to guide people a little bit because they don't realize that another table might get done first. And then, so you want to be quiet when you're talking because somebody else, might still be on the table. But, I always just love the beauty and the simplicity of it, that it doesn't really require a lot of instruction because people just go to it. They just go to the table. And then, I always tell them, just do whatever you do to bring in Reiki, however you do that with your symbols or however you do it. And then we just all put our hands on, and sometimes we naturally move around and sometimes you don't. Sometimes you just, place your hands above or on the person, and that's just where you stay for that 8 minutes. And then afterwards, we have a few minutes to exchange with that person. They can give them a few minutes to get up, and then we exchange, do a little bit of an exchange, and then the next person gets on the table, and it just flows like that. It flows so nicely. And like Caren said, then at the end, we'll gather up. The last time we gathered up in a circle, and we did a bit of distance healing. So I had everybody put some names into the middle of the circle, go around and put in a name because it was such a big group. And then we sent distance Reiki for a few minutes, and then we did a gratitude prayer, and everyone said what they were thankful for. We did a Reiki Mawashi. That's right, I forgot all the things we did. You know, and I always like to start and end with the Reiki Mawashi, because I just think that is so powerful and joins our circle together. And food can be a big thing with this group. They like to bring food. So.
Yeah, we like to eat.
So there might be food involved afterwards, you know, snacking and things like that. And people sharing their information with each other then about the different, because we have so many people that have so many skills that they're bringing to the table. You know, a lot of reflexologists and all kinds of, you know, the Qigong and so.
I mean, everybody, you know, the wonderful thing about Reiki is that it's so practical that, you know, a lot of the people who come into the studio that are Reiki practitioners are also other things, like Rose said, like reflexologist or massage therapist or yoga instructor. We have a woman who reads Akashic records. You know, there's just so much more. And it's so amazing and supportive to just meet all these people with all these amazing, you know, this amazing knowledge of such great things that could really help support a really great, healthy life.
Can you go ahead and define Reiki Mawashi for those who don't know what that is?
Oh, yes. So my understanding of a Mawashi, and I know that you can do it a couple of different ways, and the way that we do it, and the way that I usually explain it to people is to put both of their hands with their thumbs up and then turn both their hands to the left. And then they reach out so that they have their left palm is up and their right palm is down. And then you can relax your arms and we connect in Reiki circle. And then I usually guide people through the idea that the Reiki is now flowing from my heart to my hand, to her heart, and on around the circle. So it becomes a continuous flow of Reiki, and we become as one through that circle. And I'll tell you what, I will tell you a little story if that's okay. I had this is funny because I mentioned, or Robin mentioned earlier, that I teach these moon women circles, these moon mana circles. And interestingly enough, we have what's called casting the circle, and we do it exactly the same way, right? It's a little different intention, but we do it exactly the same way. And I was teaching a level 1 class this year, and it was a small group, and we started with the Reiki Mawashi. And this will be a place where I'll have people set intention, or maybe say, you know, something that they want to get from the class, or, you know, whatever Reiki is inspiring in that moment. So we did this Mawashi to connect our circle. And the one woman sat down and she said, my hands, and this was at the very beginning of the level 1 class, she said, my hands are absolutely on fire. And her husband was there with her, and he said, are you kidding? And she touched him. So here she has, is it Renard's? I don't know, never know if I'm saying that right, but she said, my hands have been ice cold for 10 years. I've not been able to feel my fingers. And just after that first couple of minutes of the class, she had feeling in her fingers and her hands were fiery hot, and they stayed that way. And I checked in with her. I haven't checked with her for a little while, but I checked in with her to say, can you still feel your fingers? And so just to me, that was like just the power of that simple act of Reiki was just amazing.
Wow. Well, so how long are your circles then?
2 hours? Usually about 2 hours.
Okay.
And that gives us usually plenty of time to, you know, to gather, to have our little gather before, and then have ample time to do the work on the tables, and then gather afterwards for a little bit.
Nice. And how often do you have them?
We've been doing them monthly. So I think this month is maybe our 4th or 5th. So we haven't been doing it too long yet. But Caren has already, you can tell them about, you set up on your website for people to inquire if they want to have a Reiki circle at their studio.
Yeah, I think it's just reikiwings.com/Reiki. No, yeah, Reiki-circle, I think. But if you go to Reiki Wings, you'll see the link for a Reiki circle. It talks a little bit about our Reiki circles, Reiki Strong Reiki circles that we do. And that if they're interested in hosting a Reiki Strong Reiki circle at their location, we would be more than happy to come out and kind of get that set up and running for them.
And get it started.
Of course, I guess, of course, it would have to be local unless I'll be more than happy to travel on an airplane and lodging, but yeah. So it's just on our website. If you just scroll at the bottom, you'll see, and then you can just send an email and, we can connect and talk a little bit more about how to have a Reiki Strong Reiki circle at your location.
And that's the reikiwings.com?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
That's really nice and a great concept to have somebody that can help you set them up, because like you were saying first, Caren, that was one of the more intimidating things. What's the structure? How do I go about this? So I love that idea. How amazing that people can get a hold of you and have you help them with that part.
Definitely. I'm so grateful that, Rose and I came together for this. Because if it wasn't for Rose, I would never have done a Reiki circle. And I just love the Reiki circles. And I know the people that come to the Reiki circles just love them too. So, I think the Reiki circles are just so great for the Reiki community. It's like a vital part of our practice for sure.
Yeah. Well, if you think about it, so many practices do have those community-based things that, so it is such a great thing to have in the Reiki community, so that we can know that we have others and support and community and talk about the things we talk about and, all of those kinds of things.
Definitely.
And I always tell people about your Reiki circles because, you do it every week. So I have a few students that tune in for that one as well. And I think, I just think they're so great. When I lived in Colorado, I did it in Buena Vista, which is where we lived, which was a small mountain town. And I remember at the time, like I always wanted to have a Reiki school because I wanted it to be, like Dr. Hayashi, where people would come to the clinic, like Hawaii Takata did, and stay for a year and practice and practice and practice and refine your skills. And, the way we teach Reiki now is the way our world is, but it just seemed to me to be a great way for people to ask questions and then to practice. And we did it in Breckenridge as well, because that was right over the mountain from where we lived. And it's so wonderful because one of my students who lives in Breckenridge, her name is Jeanette Mickety, and she started doing the Reiki circles because she teaches now in Breckenridge. And they just finished their 19th circle. So it's really built a strong community for them in Breckenridge and those surrounding areas. So yeah, it's really a great thing. But I think, like Caren said, sometimes you just need to have the person that has done it before to just show you how really easy it is just to be able to hold that space and how Reiki is really going to lead you through it. So to get started.
Well, I think it's helpful to think about the structure, and there's so many different ways to have a Reiki circle and the ways that, kind of how each one is facilitated and run, and also who are you inviting to the circle. So I know some people who facilitate a Reiki circle only have their students. And I know with ours, when we're online now and haven't been on in person since March of 2020, but in our in-person Reiki circles, but we always left it open for anyone to join at any level, including not having Reiki at all. And so bringing that circle together that way. And then we happen to have kind of the same structure you're talking about, where we would sit in circle beforehand, do some type of an invocation, introductions, and then table time. And the same thing with numbers of people at the table, and then divide the time by how much we have and a little bit of time afterwards to kind of still talk, because of course we all want to. And then I know, like one of them that I went to, it was a place for anyone to attend, and they would sit in a circle in the chairs. And then the students of that teacher used it as practice time and would go around and give Reiki to the people in the chairs on their shoulders, and then go around the circle that way. And so I know also sometimes people have very close, intimate Reiki circles. When I used to do it in my home, of course, they had to be much smaller than when I had it in a space. And gosh, we have done Reiki circles, I think, since 2003.
Wow.
A long time. And the one that you were talking about online, we actually originally started that in April of 2020, Robin and I, and the same intention that you have with teaching people how to hold a Reiki circle so they can build their community with it and engage their communities. And that was our original intention, is we both knew how to use Zoom because we had been teaching our next step Reiki classes for like 3 years before that. So we thought, okay, we can get on Zoom and we can teach people how to have their Reiki circles on Zoom and be online and keep their communities together. And it has been, we started that every week, and we have done that every week now since then. And I would say, I bet it's as high as 80% of the people that are here regularly every week have been there regularly since then.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I've tuned into a couple of your Zoom Reiki shares, and they're really great. They're well attended, and it's really great. I really enjoyed them.
Yeah, thank you. It's been an interesting evolution, because we started with it as, I mean, it still is, but really incomplete service to just have a place for us to come together, trying to understand now pandemic, now online, how is this all going to work, and developing structures. And then because everybody would join and we recorded it just to record it, then people asked for the recording. So then we realized, well, we could expand that service by putting the content on our YouTube channel, and people could listen later. So then it evolved into, well, what content do we want to share? Which is kind of what you guys were describing at the beginning of yours, of what are the things that are out there for people to experience and the resources for people to have. Mm-hmm. So can you talk a little bit about that process for you too, in kind of that opening part of it? Because I think that's one of the places where people in the structure, like, how do I start this? Like, what's the start? What's the middle? And then what's the completion of the circle, time frames, that kind of thing. So how do you find your decisions?
That was definitely the most intimidating part for me, like starting a Reiki circle, because I was never like, I never felt like I was good at like, you know, like ceremonies or rituals. So that I'm gonna let Rose answer that question because she's much more learned.
Well, I learned a lot from Colleen about ceremony. So let's back up to, so as far as introducing Reiki circles, the way that I began introducing Reiki circles was really just with my students. And I would invite anyone who, you know, when we did it in our town, I would say, well, if you want to bring somebody, you can bring somebody. Now, Caren and I, thus far, have been doing it just with practitioners from any lineage. And we just advertise it through our own emails or Facebook or whatever in the community. But my idea is to open it up to be community Reiki share. And I'm not sure if I'm answering the question that you're asking just yet.
Yeah, absolutely.
And actually, you know, I was thinking that I wrote an article about this a long time ago, and I can't remember the name of the article, but it's on my website. I'll have to look at it, where I talk about giving a Reiki talk and doing a Reiki share. And I think that what we'll do is when we open it up to the community, I think what we want to do is create that forum for, if it's specifically going to be advertised or the word is spread to people who are not trained in Reiki, then I would really like to have a talk first, a short talk at the beginning to sort of introduce them to Reiki. And then we could do it either on the tables, or I've done it the way you said, Colleen, where people sit in the chairs and then the people who are Reiki trained are, you know, we guide them through doing a seated Reiki session so that they can experience receiving it. And I think that was the idea of just having it for the Reiki practitioners now, so that we can get them in the flow and we can build a strong community and have a group of people that say, okay, yes, you know, I want to do this. And I know that my neighbor over here in Lancaster, Helene Williams, who you probably know of, Helene, and she started community Reiki shares in Lancaster. And I think I've not gone to one of hers yet, and I want to, but she has people in that town who come faithfully to give Reiki. And then it's all about people in the community attending. And a lot of the Amish come, and yeah, it's a really big deal. So that's just another, you know, little idea for down the road. So I think there might be another piece of that question that I did not answer, but.
Well, I'm not sure, but it was whatever it was.
It was kind of just like the timing structure. Like, how long do you do the introduction? How long do you do, you know, anything else? How long do you spend time on the tables? I know obviously it varies because you just kind of let Reiki guide you, but in general.
Well, I would say that you would allow somewhere between 20 minutes and a half an hour for your introduction. And that doesn't really include people coming in. Like, this would be after you sit down in circle. Because if you have a big circle and you're going around even to do brief introductions, and then like Colleen said, an invocation or a meditation, it might even be longer than a half an hour. And what I tend to do is then judge our table time by how we're doing with that initial time, which you can always adjust that. And the beauty about that is, this last time we had a lot of people. So Caren has a button on her, and I have mine too, on the website, where we ask people to please RSVP, because that way we know how many tables we need, and we kind of get an idea of how many people are going to show up, and then we can kind of plan accordingly. And this last time we had, and you knew we were going to have like 17 besides us, right? And so she had set up all 4 of her tables, And we were well prepared to say, okay, so now we're going to do 8 minutes. But if we have a small group, we might do a longer amount of time, then still calculating that you want to have at least a half an hour probably at the end to kind of wrap things up. And it works pretty well. Yeah. The only thing is, Caren was saying to me that some people are now getting kind of casual and are just showing up, that they're not always signing up because they're so comfortable with her at this, you know, when we do hers. Now here at my house, people are they're going to sign up before they come, because it's, you know, it's a little bit more, you know, natured a little bit more that way. So then if we do a Reiki talk, that's going to be probably a whole different structure. We're going to need probably a little more time for that. For that to happen.
And the one good part about you know, the timing is, if you leave a buffer half an hour in the beginning and a half an hour at the end, and maybe you go a little over in the beginning, or you're a little quicker in the beginning, you can really tailor that time of you know, when you're actually giving the hands-on Reiki, because you could have, say you have a group of 10 people. You can make it 5 groups of 2 people, or, you know, 3 groups of 3 with an extra in there, you know, and then kind of just calculate the time to see how long you want each person to receive. So that part kind of is pretty flexible.
Yeah, that's what we found too. And kind of that same idea of it. We did not have RSVP, which definitely, as you say, changes everything. When you have, you know, some idea of how many people are coming, you can prepare for that. And, you know, so it's really the reason I'm saying that is for those who are listening, these are some of the things you're thinking about and decisions you're making. And so, you know, you get to have the structure that works for you, and that can adapt and change because of the not looseness of our structure, but how, not the structure itself, but who is included, where it's a community circle, and we never, you know, knew how many people were going to attend and what level of Reiki they had, if any. Sometimes people would just hear about it and they would want to attend to see what Reiki was about. So one of the things that we did do differently, or a little bit, was that we did ask people to only practice Reiki, because we had so many modalities, even like myself, you know, that in my shamanic work as well, that they only practiced Reiki. So the people who were attending that didn't know anything about it didn't have to try to navigate through which modality did they actually receive. And we kept the processing, sharing part of it a little bit closer, you know, like a little bit less time, more of the time for just talking with one another rather than processing. But I bring those things up because those are particular decisions that you make for your own circle and your own style, and what makes you comfortable in how you want to do the share. The other thing I would say is that when I started my in-person Reiki circles, I probably did 2 or 3 years with anywhere from 1 person would show up to 3, and maybe, you know, 7 or 8, and they stayed small for a really long time, and then grew over time, of course. I mean, it's, you know, it's been 20 years, but grew over time. And so I also want to reassure people, if the I would say consistency, so that people know that they can plan on it being there, even if they're not going to show up for a while, that was also what really helped make it eventually be a little more successful. And at the time I had to work through some of it because I was actually driving quite a ways to provide the Reiki circle, and I wouldn't know who was showing up, but somebody always came, at least one. So it started very small. But that's the same thing then with our online Reiki circle. The other thing I would mention with it is the flexibility of allowing yourself to observe your structure and then, adapt it if you feel you need to. And so that's one of the things that we've discovered over time is like, okay, this is working really well, or maybe we want to add this element, or maybe we need to shift this about it, and just allowing that, that your structure and some of the policies that you make might change too. And the other thing I think is important to talk about is, do you charge for it?
Yeah, I was going to ask that. And kind of also calling the marketing piece, like if your circles are smaller, how do you grow them?
Right now we don't charge. Our circles are free because it's all Reiki practitioners from any school, any lineage is welcome. So I think we feel that, that balance of energy there is, it's balanced, where, it's a give and a receive type environment. I think we did talk a little bit before about if we were going to open it up to people who weren't Reiki practitioners, they didn't practice Reiki, then we may charge for that. But we haven't really talked much about that because we're still kind of focusing on the Reiki strong aspect of the Reiki circle, just, being there for each other. And kind of sharing that relationship with Reiki with each other. So as of now, our Reiki circles are free. Just bring you and your Reiki.
And you are the queen of marketing, so you could talk about the marketing.
As far as the marketing goes, I've really had luck just using Instagram, and I don't really know how much Facebook does for me, but I feel like I've been really lucky with Instagram and really staying in contact with my students. I think that's really important too. When I teach my class and I tell my students this, at the end of classes, I say, our relationship does not end when you walk out that door. The doors to the studio they're always open for you. You're welcome to come in here and practice anytime you want. You can practice on me anytime you want. You could use the studio to offer Reiki to other people. And like, I want, the Reiki Wings community to be a community. So I stay in contact with my students, we might text message each other or, email or just, stay connected through social media. So that's really helpful too, as being a Reiki teacher, staying connected with my students and just offering that space for them to come back and practice as well. So I think that's really important as far as, if you want to offer Reiki circles and you are a teacher, stay connected with your students.
Yeah.
And I think just the idea, if you're going to start something small, like in your home, invite your family, you obviously you need to have some people who are trained in Reiki to do it. And Colleen, you touched on that a little bit, which I thought was interesting. And I was going to ask you about how you did that in your online circles, because when I used to do have someone bring their spouse or whatever, the way that I would do it is if we didn't have a Reiki talk beforehand, just talk to them a little bit about what was going to be happening with Reiki and what that was going to look like, invite them to lay on the table and receive, but then also invite them to stand at the table and just be with the other practitioners and hold out their hand. And I was curious about how you do that with your online circles when you have people who are not Reiki trained and you're sending them off into their rooms,
Well, both in the in-person and the online versions, we also invite people to both receive Reiki and give Reiki. When we were in person, There were enough people who were consistent practitioners and teachers that came every month. And when we were in person, we did have them once a month. And then we would just pair the person who was new with the experienced person. The invocations that we do are very engaged in activating Reiki energy within a person. So feeling like the whole circle has moved into the energy in a particular way that allows for that person to give Reiki that night and share. Typically what we did was have them get on the table first and receive, so they could feel what it was like and also kind of feel the energy of the hands that were placed on them or above them. We did definitely give some instruction to the whole circle at the beginning, just to kind of clarify the role, because some of the circles did get really big. And so we wanted to make sure there was a consistency of how people were practicing, and also for everyone to know what to expect. So we did have certain instructions and just really kind of the format, a little bit about touch or no touch, making sure people are comfortable in the space, making sure people are respecting people's comfort in the space. So, making sure we had some of those types of instructions and how it would work, et cetera. In the online space, the same thing. That is really the major intention with our invocations. And the invocations, which, by the way, we do have those, we actually created an invocation booklet right at the time we started the distance Reiki shares online for people to use if they were going to start their Reiki circles. That was exactly why we created that booklet. And it's a free download on our website, Reiki Lifestyle. And if you go to the Reiki library and go to free downloads, it's a booklet of invocations that you can either read out loud, or you can know what they say, or you can adapt them, take pieces of them that you like and switch it out with how you do things. But the intention of them is that people are breathing in the light of Reiki, and it's filling their body and it's activating that energy within them. So that does a lot of different things. One is that each person now is receiving Reiki. They're bringing it into their body. They're activating, connecting with the energy. And regardless of the level of attunement a person has, for that time, they are very activated with Reiki energy. So we also do have instruction on the breakout rooms. And one of those instructions, again, for this reason, is that they only practice Reiki. So that, for instance, some of the things I do shamanically is a little bit different. And the person that's there is there to attend a Reiki circle. So that's why we give that instruction. And then we talk the same thing about not processing people. And specifically because it is a more diverse group of people that have Reiki experience. So that's one of the instructions. And then as they go into a breakout room, again, there are typically 3 or 4 people per room. If someone is brand new or has very little Reiki experience, the other people in that breakout room have experience. So many of the people that attend it have been coming for a long time. But even if they weren't, you would either, if you did an online one, and let's say you're not going to go into a breakout room, people can also stay in the main room, which is what we're in right now, and share Reiki even like this, or, share distance Reiki with the whole circle. So it's again, part of our purpose for starting that distance Reiki share, which I should say those are on Tuesday mornings from 9:30 to 11 a.m. Pacific time, and they're free. Speaking of charging, our specific purpose originally was to help people start their own online distance Reiki shares. But now the community of us, we all rely on each other so much, that community support, that I think is what you guys are also talking about in, Reiki Strong, that's the big foundation underneath all of the other things we talk about, like structure and do you charge, don't you charge, what do you do with it, who attends, all of those things. But underneath that foundation really is the intention of supporting each other and Reiki community and creating community.
Definitely.
And I love the invocations, and I have that booklet, and I also adapt my own, and they are so powerful, Colleen. I love them. So I use them all the time. And I think, would you agree that if you did a Reiki experience, that it would also bring in the energy in a similar way? If
Absolutely.
You did a Reiki experience before.
There's lots of right ways to do it.
Yeah.
So it's not like even thinking people should use the booklet. It's more, if you're looking for something, here it is. But if you already have your way of doing things, then absolutely bring your way into it. Let Reiki itself guide you on how you personally want to facilitate and what works with your particular circle of people.
And I love that. You're giving me a lot of good ideas around that too, because I love the idea of doing that, like an invocation or an experience, maybe even in lieu of a Reiki, like a formal Reiki talk, because Reiki is going to teach the energy itself is going to teach them. And if they have those basic structure around, this is what it's going to look like, and this is how we're going to do it, and everybody is on page with that, then it's amazing. It's amazing what can happen, isn't it? It's so amazing.
It really is amazing.
Do you remember? I remember back in like a long time ago, they used to have, like, I remember hearing about certain Reiki teachers who would do like a special attunement for people who came to a Reiki share that didn't have Reiki, and it was an attunement that would only last for that day, for them to use it for that day. And really, it's similar, right? It's all about intention. So I love that explanation. Thank you for that.
Well, and people, the question always is, do we have to receive the attunements to connect to Reiki? We do because we believe we do, but the real truth of it is already in our body. And I believe what the attunements are doing is activating it. And the same thing with the invocation, it activates it. There is a different level of intention with an attunement than an invocation. And so the attunement does create that really powerful connection on a continual basis, a lifelong basis. And the invocation, and like you say, some of the things that we do, like even the Holy Fire healing experience, or some of the other lineages have other ways of doing the work that is almost an attunement, but not quite an attunement, where you're doing everything except attuning the hands, like actually creating that attunement. So we've been doing it this way for years and really have always had success with it. And always, had people, we had people who attended for a lot of years that would still attend the circle and just come for that night and did not receive Reiki training. They did talk about the difference after receiving the training and the attunements. And that was fun because we could actually see somebody who had a comparison of, oh yeah, really, like now we're talking about the 10 times thing.
Definitely.
Difference with it.
I see that with people who would come in to see me as clients, and they're working really hard on living their best life, living their divine purpose, and deep healing. And then they said, you know what, I think it's time for me to learn Reiki. And once they take that, have their first Reiki attunement, it just projects them forward, just beyond what you can even imagine. You could see the process as they're receiving their Reiki, sessions. But once they receive that attunement, like you can see that just progression, just really just come forward so much, so deeply healing.
Yeah. The other thing that you talked about that I think would be worth it to share with people too is talking about staying in touch with your students and clients. And so do you want to share some of the ways that you do that? And
I have a group, I call them my soul sisters. They were my students, and we kind of started getting together in a small little group together. They were my first Reiki Master students. And I thought, oh, wow, I think it would be great if we kind of get together monthly and do experiences together or even ignitions together, just to kind of, have the practice. So if they decide to teach, they could have the practice to do it, but just kind of keep that energy strong and just have the support of each other. And now my students have turned into my teachers and my best friends. I mean, I would be lost without these women. We are constantly in touch with each other every single day. If one of us is having a bad day, we just say, oh, can you send me some Reiki? I need some Reiki. So yes, you got it. And, we send Reiki. Today, before this podcast, I said, I'm going on Colleen's podcast today at 2:30. Send me Reiki. And they're like, oh, you got it. I think, just having those who were once my students and are now my friends is so important to me, because it's also very humbling, because, I'm teaching, sharing with them something that I learned and sharing that energy with them, but then they're also returning that to me and sharing it with me and teaching me so much too. I think, that's so important. I lost my train of thought where I was going because I got excited talking about my friends, but yeah. Do you want to follow up with something?
Well, I think Caren and I have also talked about, I've spoken to her about how important it is to me to, because of just kind of stages of life and things, that I just feel like being a mentor for your students is really important. And, I like that idea of mentoring people to start their circles, to teach their classes. I always tell students that if they, want me to co-teach with them, if they're going to teach, please come back to me and we'll have a one-on-one and I'll help them, to prepare for their first class. Because as you know, when we do these amazing master classes, there's just so much energy and there's so much information that, sometimes they walk away and then 2 years later they're ready to teach. And so hence probably why you created Next Step Reiki. But Yeah, so I do that as well. I try to keep a personal connection with them and do certain things like the Reiki shares or getting together. And some of Karen's students just did Karuna with me this last weekend, and they were telling me all about, you know, how, oh yes, we get together, we've been getting together monthly and we do experiences, and so it's good. You know, there's an aspect to Reiki. You know, I have a friend who teaches Reiki, and she does huge, like really big classes. Like your classes would be small compared to the classes she does, Colleen. Like she'll teach like 75, 80 people at one time in her classes. And she's doing a lot in the medical community because she teaches PTs and OTs. And she's developed a system that really works. And I think it's amazing. I think it's wonderful that she's reaching so many people, especially in the medical community. But for me, there's always been also an aspect about having those personal connections with small groups of people that is really nice too. So it's kind of a balance between the two.
I also think the people who are meant to come to your classes will be there. You know, they are your people, and you know that community is going to be formed because you're brought together for a reason, I think too.
Absolutely. The circle is always divinely ordered. Somebody I know always says.
I have a neat experience with that. Was I was teaching a class, and there was maybe about 5 or 6 people signed up for the class, and for some reason only 2 of them were able to make it. So I said, okay, these 2, I guess we're supposed to be together. And those 2 are, I'm going to say their names because they would be excited that I said their names, would be Robin and Nikki. And those 2 are just, they're attached together. They're taking other classes together, learning other modalities, and they're just, you know, running with it together as sisters. And that's exactly how it was supposed to happen. You know, it's exactly what was meant to be for them, and even for me, because now they're my really good friends. You know, so I just trust the process and know that who's meant to be together within this community will be there. Just give it over to Reiki and it'll make it work out.
Wonderful. Well, why don't we go ahead and say your information again, just so that we can make sure. I'll have you each say it so that it's said right. And go ahead and share your websites, also where you're at and holding these, holding your Reiki circles, a little bit about the, you know, program of hosting, helping somebody figure out how to host their own Reiki circle, and then also your social media.
Well, and also what other things you're doing too.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Thanks.
Like talking about your books and other services and things like that. So yeah.
Rose, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I'll go first because I don't have as much to say. Rose is busy.
Okay.
So I am Caren Trimby, and I practice out of Reiki Wings in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania. We're about 30 miles west, I think, outside of Philadelphia. If you're familiar with Valley Forge Park, George Washington, we're just, you know, a hop, skip, and a jump away from those cabins in Valley Forge Park. My website is www.reikiwings.com. My social media is Instagram. I'm just at Reiki Wings. Facebook's a little weird because my account got hacked, so I do have 2 Facebook accounts. The one is Reiki Wing, just one wing, so it's just no S, just Reiki Wing, or I think it's Reiki 19460. That would be the zip code of Phoenixville. And if you would like to learn more about our Reiki circles, you can visit the website, reikiwings.com, and click on Reiki Circle, and it'll talk a little bit about our Reiki Circle, when it's happening, how to register to join us. And then you could also click the little button and request some more information about, you know, how to go about hosting your own Reiki circle, or having Rosa and I come out and kind of help you get that Reiki circle set up for you to help build this Reiki community and bring us all together and be Reiki strong.
You want to talk about what you do?
Some other offerings that we have at the studio, we do offer Qigong every Tuesday night at 6 o'clock. And I mentioned him before, Steve Coulter. He is a Reiki master and a Qigong instructor. He's also my ex-husband. So that's an amazing Reiki story there to hear our story if you're ever interested. So he teaches Qigong there at Tuesday nights at 6 p.m. I'm going to have a Reiki 1 and Reiki 2 class in February. If you're interested in learning Reiki with me, I'm going to have one of my good Reiki friends, Edith, come and co-teach that with me. You can read a bit about Edith on the website as well. And then I'll be teaching a master class, I think, in March, Holy Fire master class. And then I'll be teaching more Reiki 1 and 2 classes throughout the year. I just haven't set up my 2023 schedule yet, but you can definitely follow me on social media for that or check out the website because I will post that once I have it all figured out.
Great, thank you.
I'm Rose O'Connor, and I live in Elverson, PA, which no one has ever heard of, but I'm a little further west than Caren, almost at the edge of Chester County, Pennsylvania, which is pretty well-known county, west of Philadelphia, probably about an hour west of Philadelphia, probably about an hour east of Lancaster. So those are kind of the bigger places that are near us. And I teach Reiki, obviously, and do Reiki sessions. I also have begun doing what I call Reiki Reflex. So I learned integrative reflexology many years ago, and I sort of have rediscovered how much I enjoy doing it. And now that I am integrating it with Holy Fire Reiki, it has taken on a life of its own because it has become a treatment that is much lighter and just very Reiki infused as I'm working with the feet. So I do a combination of reflexology, and then it's not a full Reiki session, but it's enough that it gets people interested to want to come back. I also I'm working out of a medical center in Elverson and offering sessions, both kinds of sessions there. And I started doing 13 months ago, I have a very strong Celtic heart and Celtic soul, which has been spurred on by trips to Ireland. And I met a wonderful woman that teaches Moon Mana or Moon Women Celtic circles. And it's all about gathering in circle in the ancient tradition, the ancient Celtic traditions, and learning about the different Celtic goddesses. And we have a different theme every month. And it's been a really wonderful journey with these women, most of whom are Reiki trained because it's the Reiki women that are coming into the circles. And it's been very empowering and very beautiful for these women to develop a level of trust with one another and learn to witness each other in circles. So that's been really fun and really dear to my heart. And all of the animal Reiki and what we've been talking about with the earthing and, being connected to the earth, it kind of all just flows one into the other and is connected. I'm also a writer, and I have a number of articles on my website, which is www.reikisLove.com. Reiki is love. I don't know what my Facebook or Instagram is, but I think Robin does because she said it before. And I also have my books. I've had a couple of articles in a couple of different Reiki books that are on the website. One was one that William published on Animal Reiki articles in it. That was a while ago. And another book by Anna Twinney, who's one of my Reiki teachers. And I also have this book, which I wrote several years ago, and I just revised it. And it's called Footpaths, Love, Adventure, and Finding Home Within. And it's really about a winter that my husband Joe and I spent house and pet sitting all over the UK. But I thought about it this morning and I realized, the book starts with Reiki and ends with Reiki, and it has Reiki threaded all the way through it. I actually had someone read this book, and then she and her daughter took a level 1 and 2 class because they learned about Reiki through reading the book. So it's not just about Reiki, obviously, it's about traveling and other things. And I have finished a fiction book, which if anybody is interested in a free copy of the ebook, it's not published yet, but they can email me and I'm going to be sending out a bunch of free copies of that. So writing is a passion of mine. So yes, Reiki infused writing. And what else?
And your Facebook, by the way, is the same as your website. So
yes.
People can find you at your websites. And if they have any questions, they can, of course, email you and find all of your contact information at your website.
Absolutely.
Probably the biggest thing. So, all right.
Check out your calendars.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you both so much.
Yes.
That was really great conversation. And, I think, like we said, we have so many people that ask us that question all the time. So I think it'll be really helpful for lots of people out there listening or watching on YouTube. For Colleen and I, we are at ReikiLifestyle.com. As Colleen said, I didn't say that earlier, that we do have the free distance Reiki share Tuesday mornings. So you can find all of the information about all of the things that we are doing and do at ReikiLifestyle.com, and our social media is either Reiki Lifestyle or Robin Benelli Reiki. So you can find both of us on all the things.
And this will be posted both on YouTube and podcast channels.
Yeah.
So you can listen to it either through audio or also video and audio. So either way.
Yeah. Well,
thank
awesome.
you so much.
Thank you so much for having us and allowing us to talk about, Reiki. We both love it so much and love sharing it. So thank you so much.
And thank you for all that you're doing. And what a great idea to actually assist other people in starting their Reiki circles. Because it is first and foremost at the foundation, that community gathering and a place that is supportive and through a really diverse community of people. Thank you for your work.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's that ripple effect. So,
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you to all the listeners, and we will see you next time.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.